So I'm doing research into multivector perspectives and scalar waves. And just like ChatGPT is not having it. Like the censorship is so strong that it's like stronger than, I think it's stronger than the astrology censorship, and that's really, really intense. So I'm fighting with it. Critical thought more. Critical thought better. It's not. It keeps getting stuck here where it keeps being like, oh, it's inherent to particles, and it doesn't like pay attention to planets or like the toilet with, water spinning in it. It doesn't pay attention to galaxies. It's like, what? And I really start digging in, trying to point it out, like just really poke at it. It's like, hey, hello. Finally, at one point, I get it to say this, classical physics, and I realize there's a linguistic breakdown in the code of this. And so classical physics is the problem. We can't be using that because it's classic and we need new physics. And so it's just using Rockefeller-style textbook examples from public high school as its reference point. And so it won't even consider anything beyond the 4 dimensions. It's so strange because it's like it knows to regurgitate that spin remains an intrinsic property of particles. And if it's an intrinsic property, how is that not part of like spatial positioning? How is that not part? Because you can see it in space. It's observable, it's measurable. And yes, we're spinning around an axis, but like time is also affected by the axis of space as well. So it's got to be related. And I feel that scale is a little different. Maybe scale's not the case, but I think scale's on the list too. And the reason why is because when I'm programming in a mathematical physics environment for 3D development for video games, I mean, scale is a separate value. So is spin. So I'm pretty sure that that's where these extra dimensions exist in. It's these other properties that are all play. But why aren't they? What I'm surprised about is that I haven't really seen scientists kind of explaining that. Maybe I haven't seen it properly. Maybe I haven't been reading the documentation enough. But it's pretty obvious. Like Nikola Tesla was all about spirals and stuff. That's spin, and that's like how many spins does it take to transform 1 volt to 120 volts? It takes 120 spins. That's a value. Did it take 120 x, y, or z dimensions? No. The 120 t dimensions, time dimensions? No spin dimension. That's how much it took. So I think what happened here is that our textbooks had it removed because that's some kind of super critical knowledge base that we need in order to truly understand the cosmos. I think that is like a limiter that prevents us from potentially leaving the planet or gaining some sort of higher consciousness. Definitely prevents us from understanding scalar waves. So I wonder if that's where it's coming from. Because when I'm hearing about how scalar waves are measured and how it's this 5th dimension, and they're always saying, hold on, like compactified or curled up, like dimension that is a curled up dimension. I mean, come on, it's pretty obvious. Once again, ChatGPT is just regurgitating its knowledge base, so it's not really actively thinking. And so when I ask it to critically think, it's just regurgitating the same information about the topic. But I can't help but feel it's a little strange that it can't even jump, and even when I try to bring it into a fiction state, it still refuses to do it. So that's really strange. That must mean that there's something a little more forceful preventing that knowledge from getting through on this system. Michio Kaku talks about this stuff all the time. Michio Kaku talks about it in his books. I've read at least 2. And I gotta say, I'm very excited for a day where I get a non-censored AI. Oh, wait a minute. GPT for all! Haha! There's no guarantee that this will work, but there's two uncensored AIs that I have on this system. This is the AI I'm using. Thinking critically beyond the standard model and classical physics, how is spin the fifth dimension in context of scalar waves? Let's see. Okay, so it does a better job trying to think critically, but it's not really sure because there's just not enough information for it. But it definitely thinks that it's possible. So that's nice. I'll keep looking into it, but in video game development, spin is a property just like X, Y, Z, T. That is the S dimension. I mean, like, spin is observable everywhere. There's galaxies, all kinds of stuff spin. All kinds of stuff don't spin. And spin can't be measured by your XYZ position. So the 3 dimensions of space don't apply. But you can spin around those axes if you have them. Otherwise, you just have just 1 dimension spin, and that's just a value of how fast it's spinning. And then it can also go against time, because then it's not only do you have like the amount, but then you can do it over time. And so there's no way that you can't do that as a additional dimension. And it's observable and testable. And it's so blatantly obviously observable and so blatantly obviously testable that I don't truly understand how it could possibly not work. I'm trying to think about how math matrices operate. Because in a matrice, you can do what's called a transformation. And a transformation of a 4-dimensional matrix, which has X, Y, Z, T. But when you do that transformation for a rotation, you have to add a rotation value. And that's the 5th value. That value is a property, which attributes to a dimension that's external. And not to mention that you could also add that into the matrix and make a 5-dimensional matrix with spin. And then have another value, like scale, for example, that then say, okay, I want you to transform the scale of this 5-dimensional matrix. Yeah, I think spin is the dimension, and we're just Rockefeller messed up our education by forcing us to not believe that spin is even a dimension on purpose to prevent us from being able to achieve what? Evolution? Revolution.